Hello everyone, we are back again and ready to do our heel flaps, heel turns, and gussets. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna work these all on the needles. And how we're gonna do that is a little bit complicated and it seems a little bit silly the way that we have to do it, but it's the only way that I figured out that we can accomplish it without having to pull these off of the needles. So what we're going to do is we're going to knit each individual heel flap, we're going to turn the heel, and then we're going to pick up a portion of the gusset stitches on one side. We can't pick up the gusset stitches here because there are no gusset stitches. So we're going to start by building the heel flap, turning it, and then we will end with our yarn here. And so we'll pick up the stitches on our way back down before we build the heel flap on the next sock. It's important that we do it this way. Otherwise, your yarn won't be in the right place when you go to the instep. Well, I mean, I guess it will be, but it'll just be. It's my preferred way of doing it because otherwise, because what I want to accomplish is I want to accomplish having my gussets and heels on the same needle and my instep being separate. So, so if you can imagine this, what I'm gonna do is I got my little sticky note here. I'm just gonna show you. So I have my instep needle, which is here, and then my heel needle, which is here. So we're just going to picture our instep needle as a flat line, and it is going to stay that way for the entire process. The same number of stitches will be on there. We're not going to alter the instep needle at all. So how we do that is, if we can imagine, we're going to go through and we're going to build up our heel flap on our second needle. And when we build up our heel flap on the second needle, we're going to end with our yarn here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to pick up our gusset stitches on our way back down. So that'll give us the ability to be able to work our second heel flap here, end with our yarn here, and we can pick up our gusset stitches on the way back down. So if we do that again, oh, that was backwards. You get my point. Here we end up here, and then we pick up our gusset stitches on the way back down. So then when we get to the end, we get to our last sock and our last heel flap and gusset, or our last heel flap and heel turn, and we've picked up these gusset stitches. We're just gonna turn around. We're gonna work the instep needle all the way down as we normally would, and then when we get to the next side, then we're going to pick up our gusset stitches on this side, and then we'll work across and down and pick up our gusset stitches, work across and down, pick up our gusset stitches, work across and back down. And then that way we end up with basically our needle ends up looking like this. So it has all of our gussets, heels, gussets on each needle, and it kind of just does that little wave through each sock. Now the reason that I'm bringing this up is because we have here two 32-inch needles, or at least that's what I'm working on because I'm using, I'm doing toddler socks, so I'm doing little socks. So I only need little needles. If you're doing adult size socks, highly recommend that you're at somewhere around maybe a 40-inch on at least the heel side. You could even really do a 60-inch to be able to get that extra space for yourself. I may end up needing to transfer my heel needle to a 40-inch. I'm going to try not to because I can kind of squish these down quite a bit. But if you see the video pause and suddenly there are longer needles, that's going to be why. I'm pretty sure that I can do this on the 32 inch, but we'll see how it goes. So essentially that's what we're working with how we're going to do that's the mechanics basically of how we're going to approach this. So I am going to go ahead and get started, and I'm just going to start at heel flap and gusset 1, and then I'm just going to move right down the line. So let's get started. Heel flap number 1, what we're going to do, well, and I suppose all heel flaps, I like to just go ahead and pull my needles tight, and if you've watched my previous videos, you know I'm taking the needle from the Instep, and I am working onto my first sock. So this pattern has me working across all 22 of my tiny little stitches here, and the first thing that we're going to do is, let's see, it has me slipping one and knitting to the end, and it looks like that's going to be how we're going to do it for all right side rows, and then we're going to purl on the wrong side rows. Oh, come on. Okay, so once I get here, I'm going to just turn my work. Now, this being said, if you're a person who is one of those people who's capable of just knitting backwards, do that. That way you don't have to turn your work. But if you can't, just go ahead and turn your work like so, and then work the wrong side. We're just going to be working back and forth like this as we build our entire heel flap. And turning back. The thing about this that's important is just making sure that, you know, as you're doing this, as you're flipping back and forth, again, it's all about minding the ends of your needles. So it's just making sure that this needle doesn't loop on these yarns. So same principle all the way through working our 12 at a time socks. It's just really important to mind your working yarn, or your non-working yarn, sorry. I'm having a terrible day knitting. I am dropping stitches left and right all day today, and I don't know what is with me. This pattern has me doing this for a total of 10 rows. Come on, you. And I'm going to do a little bit of movie magic while I finish this up. Okay, so we have now, obviously this is much longer than my other, and so it's causing the needle to do a little bit of a funny thing here. That's okay, that's totally normal. Now what we're gonna do is we are going to work our heel turn in just the same manner. So again, we're just gonna keep going back and forth as we work our heel turn, and then I'll show you how to pick up the gusset stitches. I'm doing an improvised slip knit. There's a video for it on my channel. I'll link it above if you want to check it out. It's a one-step slip knit and I really love it. And it's all I ever use anymore. I do this thing where I have a tendency to forget when I'm counting, and then I have to count again, over and over and over again. You probably caught that in my initial, as I was working the heel flap. Okay, so there's my setup for my heel turn, and then now I'm just going to Okay, so that's all the stitches that I have for my heel flap, or I'm sorry, for my heel turn. And so I'm just gonna work across to where the pattern tells me to work across all of these stitches. And then that'll get me to the point where I'm ready to pick up my gusset stitches. It tells me to pick up and knit 11 stitches. So I am going to do that. And so you can do this a couple of different ways. So I have a tendency, I'm kind of lazy in it, and I have a tendency to just go ahead and pick up my stitches with my right hand needle, and I just pull them through. Ooh, well, okay, poor example. I just pick up my stitches with my right hand needle and I just kind of pull them through that way, and that's optional. You can definitely do it that way, or I sometimes will take my previous needle, this needle here, and I will work them down this way. You can also use a double pointed needle, whatever method is best for you. Just go ahead and do that. And I don't always go according to what the pattern says. This says to pick up 11. I'm going to pick up what comes up and what looks appropriate. And if that happens to be 11, great. If it's not, then I'm going to pick up more, just dependent upon what I find in the row here, as I'm working down and picking up these stitches. If there's 12, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up 12 on the other side as well, just to make an even gusset with no holes. So that's my little, oh, of course I forgot now how many. See, this is what happens when I'm talking. I forgot how many stitches. I should have 14 remaining. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and then I've picked up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. 6, Okay, so that makes 11, and that actually looks pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave it at 11. So now what I have here is I have made it to I've got this like weird kind of triangle situation happening, and you can see I have basically a little almost foot. If I were to just pull that way, you can see here that I've got my leg, my flap, my turn, and my gusset. So this is ready now to work in. This is ready now to work into the next sock. So I'm going to just put these stitches back where they were. And we always just want to make sure that, again, our yarn is where it needs to be when we move on to the next sock. And so what we'll do now is we'll just bring up this next sock, and just like we have this whole entire time, we're just going to work the next sock in line. Oops, that should be a slip. Oh my gosh, stop. Normally I would be doing this like on the couch or something, so my needles don't make these noises. Okay, and then when we get to our wrong side row, again, all we're gonna do is we're just gonna turn it. Now, what it ends up doing when you get to like the middle area is it's almost like you're turning it into like a little crescent, and you're working like a little crescent here. So that way you still have everything in order. You get to have all of your yarns going where they need to go, and you're just kind of working it like a little crescent shape here. And then we will bring it back out. It's a little bit more obvious when you're working with longer needles what you'll be doing as far as like all that movement goes. But yeah, basically you're just bringing it out and in like that. Okay, so same thing as before. We have our, it's gonna look a little funny at first because our needles are a little bit, you know, mixed up because of the different stitches, or well, the different angles that it's going at. But essentially we have gusset and heel, or heel flap and gusset 1, heel flap 2. Now we'll pick up for gusset 2, and we'll just do it the same way we did before. Okay, so I've got my little gusset stitches there. And so we have our first and second sock, heel flap, and first gusset. Looks a little funny, but we've got those out, and then we will just keep working them down the line, and I'll come back when I have more progress. Okay, so we finished up with the side of our gusset that we were working on. So I have worked up the heel flap, heel turn, and I've picked up one side of my gusset stitches. Now what we need to do is we need to turn this to where we are able to work the instep, and then we'll be able to pick up the other side of the gusset stitches as we return from our instep. Normally I would flip the box, but instead I'm just going to go ahead and flip my work like this right now, just because I have a little bit easier access to it this way at the moment. So I'm just going to go ahead and do as I normally would, and I'm going to work across all of these instep stitches. So now I made it to the last sock, and I'm just going to go ahead and work across, and then when we get to the other end we are going to once again flip our work, and then we're going to start picking up those gusset stitches. Okay, so we have all of our socks now stretched out on our needles. Things can get like a little bit twisted feeling here. Don't panic, just kind of take your time, straighten it back out. It's just because of the way that the socks are situated on the needle, with having this big gap here where there is none on the other side. It kind of forces them to kind of want to twist around the needle. Just like I said, take your time, make sure that you get everything kind of organized on there. So that you know, that way, when you pick up your work again and you go to turn it, you're still not tangled there. There we go. So we've got all of these little heels. So at this point, you can use the end of this needle to pick up the stitches, or if you want to, you can also use double pointed needles. You can even, if should you choose to, it might make things a little bit more complicated, but you could even, you know, if you have a set of 5 needles, you can go in and pick up the stitches on several socks, so you can just work your way across. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to do them one at a time. And so I'm just going to go in and pick up all these stitches, making sure that I have the same amount on this needle as I did when I picked up the other side of my gusset. I had 11 on that side. So 2 more. There we go. And then I still do want to use, earlier in the video I said Instep. I'm going to try to correct that, but not your Instep needle. You want to use the non-working end of your working needle. I think earlier I said Instep needle. That was a mistake, so I'm going to try to correct that, like I said, in the post editing. But so basically what you're going to do is then you're just going to come in and you're going to knit off of your gusset needle onto your working needle. So this is, we've just picked up our 11 stitches on the gusset now, and then we are going to work in to where our heel stitches are. It's hard to see here. We're going to work into where our heel stitches are, and then the other side of our gusset stitches. And this is where it's going to squish on the needle pretty good, because you're going to have a lot of stitches packed on. And so if you're using too small of a cable, you might end up having a little bit of trouble moving these stitches, or moving these socks down the needle. So that's why I'm recommending that you use a little bit larger of a needle. Like I said, I'm trying with a 32-inch here for all 12 of these toddler socks, And it seems to be going pretty well so far. I don't have any complaints yet, other than when I was working across the gusset stitches, it was a little bit cramped. As I was picking up the gusset stitches on the other side, it was a little bit cramped, working that heel flap and turn and then picking up those gusset stitches. But all in all, it doesn't seem to have been that much of an issue. So there we go. We've got our first sock done. So now if I move this past, you can see here I've got a little heel. And this is what I was talking about when I mentioned you have your instep needle, and then you have your instep needle. Let's flip that around here. And then you have all of your heels, because that's what that's going to look like. It's just going to kind of go in and out of each of the heels, where all of your instep stitches are going to be in one straight line. And then once you decrease on either end of your gusset, it's going to work back down to where you're going to be even on either side. It's a little bit harder to move them if you don't have them kind of straight. I like to have my one sock still on the needle before I start moving them down. And then on our next sock, we're just going to take our double pointed needle, or like I said, if you want to pick up and knit onto, because like you can just take this needle, your working needle, you can just take this, pick up and knit if you want to. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a little bit harder to maneuver, but it works. Okay, so that's where I have my 11 stitches picked up on that other gusset. Now I'll work across my heel stitches, and then I'll work down my gusset stitches onto the next needle. All right, so there we have it. This is our heels of our 12 at a time socks. And so you can see here we have all 12 of our little baby heels. Aren't they so cute? And now we'll just work through the gussets, which, like I was saying, will decrease on our second needle, our heel needle, and it'll decrease us down to the point to where we are at the same number of stitches as we started with. And then once we have that, it's smooth sailing onto the foot, and then we'll work on the toes. And so this is kind of what I was talking about. So you can see here, you know, how when you stretch these little heels out, how I don't have enough cable to kind of, you know, make them stretch out entirely. Not that that's entirely necessary, because you do, when you're working with them, you do want them to be, you know, you do want them to be kind of scrunched together like this. But if you're working on adult socks, I just don't feel like a 32-inch cable is going to be able to cut it for you. So I would recommend having at least a 40-inch on the heel side. If you're doing adult size socks, you can even go up to 60-inch. That would be completely okay. And so what I'll go ahead and do from here on is I'm going to go through, I'm going to work the gussets, and then I'll probably just give you guys a little update video as soon as I make it through the gussets so you can see what they look like from that point. And then we'll move on to the toes. So you might not see an update from me, you know, anytime in the soon, but we'll get one to you so you can see what it looks like after we've completed the gussets on these. And then, yeah, get started on toes, and we'll show you how to Kitchener all these to finish them off. And thanks for watching. I appreciate your dedication if you've made it in this far. Hopefully this answers some of your questions about the heels. I get a lot of questions about the heels, so I just wanted to make sure that I made like a full video of how to accomplish it. So if you like the video, feel free to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you'd like to see further videos, and we'll be back again with part 4.